All right, so I'm recording this actually at the end of the league instead of at the beginning, and I'm using the replay function. But I am going over match one, which there was a recording issue and I couldn't save it. I do think this is it's not the most interesting game, but I think this is worth going over. Also, it allows me to end on a high note because unfortunately, the last game of the league did not go so well. Um, but yeah, let's go over this. Um, yeah, so here this was a keep because that's the power of Aether Vial. Is sometimes you can keep one land hands because you end up having a lot of action, and it's got the Dismember. This was a pretty easy keep. I do remember though that I was concerned about a possible first turn discard spell, but that doesn't look like it's an issue. Of course, there still is a possibility of a turn one of a Force of Negation now. Um, yeah, Leland of Anticipation is interesting. Um, I really don't know what to expect here. My first thought was maybe a budget Merfolk deck, but it ends up. Then I thought maybe mono blue Urza, or maybe just Urza and it doesn't have its black lands, but it has Leyline. And at this point, I'm thoroughly confused because they play Counterbalance. But the good news is I've got Aether Vial, so that you know, that means that I don't necessarily get super exposed to Counterbalance. I do go for Smuggler's Copters because there's a lot of upside, but it doesn't hit. They don't have a way to manipulate the top of their library in response right now. Then they play Nykthos, and then it makes sense. They're some type of mono blue devotion deck, um, and yeah. So like but I still don't know exactly what they're gonna do. But attacking with Smuggler's Copter makes a lot of sense because I can loot. The Aether Vial is the second Aether Vial is basically always dead. Um, yeah, I do play the Spreading Seas. My logic is I want to shut off their Nykthos. I don't know exactly what they're going to do with all their extra mana, and if it gets countered, it's not that big of a deal anyway. It's kind of like I have to Spreading Seas right then anyway to get any value of it out of it, so why not? Unfortunately, they do counter it with Counterbalance, and they do have a Master of Waves. I could have maybe drawn another land if it would have resolved, which I would have. Um, but the good news is I can still Dismember. I'm still at a high enough life total that Dismember is still live. So what I do is I keep up both Dismember and Brazen Borrower. So I've got two ways to deal with Master of the Waves. I do this on their upkeep so they don't draw another card, but also if they want to play something and they do have Leyline, they have to do so on their turn, so they have less mana available. They play Thassa's Oracle, which is very interesting. It does kind of go along with the devotion theme. Um, and yeah, I think here it's I pretty much have this situation under control. Yeah. All right, really not much to say there. Kind of cool concept. Cool concept for a deck that the opponent has. Curious to know how well it's doing overall. I certainly am very fascinated with trying different angles of attack, like this mono blue devotion. You know, uh, they're using Master of Waves, interestingly enough, and not us, the Merfolk deck. But yeah. Anyway, let's go to the next game. Not a lot to say there. Just mostly, I think their counterbalance didn't really do that much work, and maybe they were relying on that and their Master of Waves. But we happen to have Aether Vial and Dismember as answers for both, so that kind of was what it was. All right. All right. Match one, the second game. Again, recording this at the end of the league, using the replay function. I think this one goes by pretty quick. Yeah, you know what? Actually, I don't even know if I'm going to end up showing this. But yeah, it's a pretty easy keep. It's a good hand. Not much to say here. I guess just briefly how I sideboarded. I took out the Chalices because they didn't seem to have that many one drops, and it didn't seem like their deck was particularly dependent on any of the one drops they played. Um, so I brought those out, and I brought Force of Negation in. And I also brought Spreading Seas out, obviously, because they're mostly blue. Sure, it hits the Nykthos, but that's it. Um, and I brought in Deprive, because they just seem to be a more spell-based, control-ish type deck. Um, So, you know, yeah, and that's the game. Um, and not a lot to say here. So, yeah, not exactly sure what happened. Maybe they had something to do. Maybe they didn't hit their second land. I don't know. But you know, this made this not a particularly interesting game. Um, yeah, you know, overall, you know, this could have been interesting to see how this played out because I'm just not super familiar with this matchup. I would imagine probably having Island Walk and you know being an aggro control deck, you know, kind of plays well into more controlling strategies in general. Um, but you know, who knows? So that's it. And I guess the recap is next.